Professional football in America is a special game, a unique game. Played nowhere else on earth, it is a rare game. The men who play it make it so.
I believe it's about character. It's about who you are, what do you stand for, integrity.
The game is about life, and it's about what you have to do to pick yourself up, to make yourself the best you can possibly be.
I got a scholarship to Nebraska. I had a 17-year career with the Vikings.
It is the ups and downs of the game, the turmoil. Those are all parts of life.
It is my duty, I believe, is to get that message out that you can live with integrity, but you have to have some God in your life to do that.
I've always wanted to be great at everything I've done. I've always been a competitor. I've always showed humility. I'm a team guy.
The values that it teaches you is A, diligence, B, perseverance. There are many more downs than there are ups.
This is such a spectacular game. It's a matter of one's dedication, one's belief in themselves as an individual to achieve greatness.
The game of football has taught me faith, it's taught me commitment, and it's taught me to have a tremendous resolve. And whatever I plan to do, I'm going to get it done.
You never dream, no matter how good you may be, that you'll ever be in the Hall of Fame.
Living with integrity, I certainly, honor the values of the Hall of Fame.
This is an honor bestowed not only on me, but for every teammate that I had. All of these people should be celebrated, not just me. It takes the moment from me to everyone but me.
Honor the heroes of the game.
Preserve its history.
Promote its values.
And celebrate excellence everywhere.
Okay, and with that, we'd like to welcome everyone today live here from Canton, Ohio. My name is Mike Myers. I'm a member of our youth and education staff here at the Hall of Fame, and we're excited to be bringing you another introduction to our Heart of the Hall of Famer series. It's our first one for this school year, and we're excited to get going. We've been doing this program since 2010, and we've reached roughly over about 50,000 students through this program in the 5 years. So this is a program that is near and dear to our hearts. We got a school joining here. Like I said, it's a program near and dear to our hearts because we spend a lot of time talking about what our Hall of Famers did during their playing days, what they did on the playing field, what they did maybe as a coach or a contributor. But with this program here, we're really going to focus in on some values that we hold dear to our hearts here at the Hall of Fame, those values of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence, and talk a little bit about what it takes to be a Hall of Famer off the field. And we're excited to hear some of the stories and advice and whatnot from Mr. Zimmerman on how he incorporated these values into his playing days and even after his playing days into the kind of guy he is and was off of the field. So before we kind of get into those stories, which we're really looking forward to today, we do have a couple of thank yous to get through. First of all, we need to thank our friends out there at Mountain View High School for all their hard work, namely John Aubrey, Aaron Schrader, Katie Legacy, Ben, Julianne. Thank you guys for everything on your end, all the due diligence to make sure this program runs smoothly. So many thanks to you. We need to thank our friends at Extreme Networks. They're our partner here in our youth and education department, and they do a lot of great things for this program, but for schools in general. So thank you to them. We need to thank our teachers today. Thank you for opening your classrooms and embracing those values I mentioned earlier and the importance they are to educate our youth on those values and character in general. So thank you to you fine folks. That brings us to our students. You guys are going to be the stars of the show today. So thank you for you guys. I know you guys have hopefully done some research on Mr. Zimmerman's career, on maybe those values in general. So we're excited to see what questions you have today and how you're kind of going to lead this program and where you're going to take it. So with that, it's almost time for me to stop talking. We do need to give a brief introduction to our featured speaker today, which of course is Pro Football Hall of Famer and Gold Jacket, Mr. Gary Zimmerman. So we'd like to share another video, give you just a little bit of a glimpse into the playing days of Mr. Zimmerman and what he looked like for the Vikings and Broncos. So we'll share that with you, and we'll be right back for the start of our program. All right, perfect. I do want to share a little bit more on Mr. Zimmerman's career, though. As they saw there, he's just a handful of players to earn the honor of being selected to 2 All-Pro or All-Decade teams. His superior play earned him a spot on the NFL's 1980s and 1990s All-Decade team for the NFL. At 6'6", 294 pounds, Mr. Zimmerman spent the majority of his professional playing career with the Minnesota Vikings and the Denver Broncos. He did have a brief 2-year stint with the Los Angeles Express of the then United States Football League. He's only one of 7 Hall of Famers from the USFL. After joining the Vikings in 1986, Zimmerman began a streak of 169 consecutive starts that ended then in 1996, so 10 years later. Along the way, he earned first or second team All-Pro honors 8 times and was also selected to 7 Pro Bowls during that time frame. His impact was felt on the field, both in the running game and the passing game. With the Vikings, they led the league in rushing in 1991. And then in Detroit, with Mr. Zimmerman blocking, they had their most prolific output as an offense in franchise history. They led the AFC in total combined yards in 1995, and then led the league in that category in 96 and 97. And they also led the NFL in rushing in 96. In 1998, Gary was a member of the Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos as they defeated the Green Bay Packers. We saw the clip there by a final score of 31-24. And then recently he was enshrined here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2008, where he is only one of 260 players to be enshrined. You think 260 players, but there's only 27,000 guys to play a game of pro football. Only 260 are in the Hall of Fame. We have an opportunity to speak with one today, so it's a true honor for all of us. Off the field, you mentioned Gary is married to his wife, Lisa. They have 2 daughters, Lindsay and Kelsey. I would like to share a quote with you before we get started from Mr. Bolin, who's majority owner of the Broncos. It was a quote that was part of his presentation here at the enshrinement ceremony in Canton. He said, and I quote, "He played so hard that it was very difficult for those around him not to step up and try to do the same thing. We love you for the way you conducted yourself, for the kind of guy you were," end quote. So truly one of the great players of the game of pro football, but also off the field, one of the great guys. And we're excited to hear some of the stories today. So if we could all at once kind of unmute our microphones and give a warm round of applause for Pro Football Hall of Famer, Gold Jacket, Mr. Gary Zimmerman. All right, we can all remute. We would like to recognize all the schools we have participating today. So we are going to go around and just kind of, so everyone knows who we have in today. So we're going to start, let's start out in Fabius, New York. We're going to start out there with Fabius Pompey. I'm going to unmute you. Betsy, if you guys just give a shout out or make some noise for Mr. Zimmerman.
Yay, Mr. Zimmerman! Go
Very good. All right, then we're going to go over to Youngblood Intermediate out there in Houston, Texas. If you folks could please unmute and let Mr. Zimmerman know you're excited to be here today. Very good, very good. And we had joined in there as well, I think I saw, from Waldorf, Maryland, Thomas Stone High School. Can you guys hear and see us all right? And if so, please give a warm welcome to our Hall of Famer today. Yeah, very good. Very good. If you guys will go ahead and remute there as well then. All right. And then we're gonna go out to Kettering, Ohio, with Kettering Fairmont High School. If you guys can unmute and make some noise. And we'll remute there. And last but not least, our host site out there in Bend, Oregon, all the way from the West Coast. Our folks out in Mountain View. If you guys could unmute. Actually, we are already unmute because we wouldn't want to mute Mr. Zimmerman. But if you guys can make some noise and let us know you're excited to have him there at the school with you today. Very good. So we got a lot of excited students for you today, Mr. Zimmerman. So with that, I would like to open up to you if you have any opening remarks, minute or two, on kind of what you would like to share with the group before we get into the question and answer.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for joining in with me today. To me, I think character is something that is not built overnight. It's something that takes a lifetime to hone and upgrade. What is character? Character is a moral and ethical choices that we all take that make us all individuals. So everybody doesn't have the same subset of character, but everybody has some subset of character. So what we're going to talk about today, hopefully, is some of the common ones that make people get the gold jacket. When I started playing football at age 9, I never dreamed of having a jacket. I never even knew what the Hall of Fame was. I was gifted, though, in that at the age of 9, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew that I wanted to play football. I didn't understand the realities of the world, but I always wanted to play football, and it used to drive my dad crazy because he knew the odds of playing pro football was very slim. But growing up playing football through youth football, high school football, college football, and pro football has honed me to be the guy that I am today. We're going to talk about some of the things he mentioned earlier: commitment, respect, integrity. There's plenty more, but these are the 5 I guess we're going to deal with today. But it doesn't happen overnight. One of the qualities that I believe in is patience, because just like anything in life, you're not good at anything right away. It takes patience. It takes hard work. So I think patience is very important. The thing that I was gifted with also is that my dad instilled a work ethic that if I was a young man today, he'd probably be in jail, because he worked us so hard that it was unbelievable, but it carried over to other things in life. So I have a hodgepodge of the choices that I made that made me the man today, and hopefully I can share them with you today. So let's open the floor up to questions and get this thing started.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Zimmerman. I would like to remind those that we do have a couple of viewing in that are non-interactive today. And for those groups, as well as the students in front of us that are interactive, we will be submitting questions here via the video. But also, if you guys want to interact with us on social media, please use the Pro Football Hall of Fame handle, which is @ProFootballHOF. And please use the hashtag HOFValues. So HOF values. And any of the questions that don't get asked via video, we can maybe interject those as the program goes on. So we're going to go live then to Mountain View for our first questions there. Looks like we have 2 students there in the football jersey. So if you guys would please go ahead and kick the program off and go ahead with your first question.
Awesome. Yeah, the first question we got here is, what is one thing that you learned from your successful football career that you feel you have applied to your life after?
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned early on is how to deal with adversity. And everybody in this room will have adversity, and things don't always go the way you think they're going to go, but it's how you react to things. One of the quotes I used in my Hall of Fame speech was by the Dalai Lama. It went something like, "Not getting what you want is sometimes a great stroke of luck," and that's pretty much has been my mantra for life. Is because when I was little, I looked forward and said, my life is going to be like this, but it never was. And there becomes hurdles, tough times. Everybody has tough times. And it's how we get through these tough times. Do we fold up and quit? Because if you give up, it becomes easier the next time to give up. So you can never give up. And you're always fighting that urge to give up, because giving up is the easy way out. Injuries is a big thing in football. You get hurt. You can either give up or you can fight through it. And that's the same in life, is you have challenges, your kids get into situations you don't like, but you got to deal with it. You have choices to make. Things happen, your family gets ill, things like that. And you can't just fold up. You have to fight through things. So I heard the kids here at Mountain View use the word grit. And I think grit is part of what I'm talking about here but I think adversity is the biggest thing you have to overcome. And how you deal with that is one of the mental choices you make as far as a character.
Very good. And I would make the assumption, Mr. Zimmerman, that consecutive streak of 169 straight starts, that there was maybe some mental grit required, and maybe some days where you were hurt but you weren't injured.
Yeah, one of the things that when I got to Minnesota, one of the things was that the linemen are a very tight-knit group, and one of the things that was mentioned was we practice unless we can't walk. And that kind of just grew and grew and grew. And there was times that I had surgery on Monday, couldn't practice all week, but I still played on Sunday. So it becomes a mindset that where you have to fight through it. I mean, there was times when it hurt so bad I didn't want to, I really didn't want to play, but I had to play. It's one of those things where you got the devil on one side and the angel on the other side. So you got to fight off the urge to quit. And, and so for my life, I was successful in doing that. Not always, but most of the time.
Perfect. All right. Great question to start us off. I think next we're going to go out to Kettering, Ohio. So for folks there, if you guys could please unmute and ask your first question for Mr. Zimmerman. Go.
All right. What was your favorite team group of players that you played with?
Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear that really.
What was your favorite team group of players that you played with?
Favorite group?
Here was the question. Mr. Zimmerman, the question was what was your favorite group of players to play with, and maybe why they were your favorite? What was it about them?
Well, I think with being a lineman, we're a very tight-knit group of players. You're a subset of the team, and I think for me my most favorite group was when I was with the Minnesota Vikings, because back then they didn't have free agency, so we were all we stayed with the same team for 7 years. So we even hung out on the off days together. So we were kind of a close-knit family. But the reason linemen always hang out together is because they have a common set of values. It seems like all offensive linemen, have a great thing of humility, which you really don't want the spotlight. You want the other players to have the spotlight. So humility, we had humility there. We had respect. We had respect for everybody. The linemen are just kind of the good guys in the team. There's other groups of players that aren't. But the reason I would pick the Vikings is because, like I said, there was no free agency, so we were a very close-knit group of players, and we all had common values.
Perfect. All right, very good. And then we're going to go then out to Houston, Texas, to Youngblood Intermediate. If you guys could please unmute your microphones and ask your first question. Are you there?
Yep.
Yes, have you ever gave up on a goal that you or someone else set for you?
Oh, good question. Like I said before, that's dealing with adversity, but I'm quite the opposite. I'm kind of one-track mind, almost to a fault, in that if I set my mind on something, I am determined. So that is, one of the traits is determination. I'm sure I have, but I cannot remember that because you choose not to remember bad things. But I cannot really remember giving up on anything in football, so I wouldn't say it had to do with football, but maybe in other parts of life. But like I said earlier, once you give in once, it becomes easy to give in other times. So, I've always made a point of fighting the urge to give in. I always, in high school, we used to have to run this road called Gartel, and it was a 2.5-mile road, and all it was they said it was conditioning, but it was punishment, really. So they'd make us run this 2.5-mile road, and I remember jogging along there, tired, huffing and puffing, and my mind was telling me, you know what, just give up, give up, give up. And you had to just push through it. I never gave up, but I kept going. But everybody, I think, can relate to that feeling, to where it's always easier to stop doing something because it's easier. But, another quality of character is courage. And you got to have the courage to fight through it. And so I'm sure I have done that, but I can't remember what it was. And I definitely know it wasn't in football.
Perfect. All right, we're going to go then out to our friends there at Thomas Stone High School in Waldorf, Maryland. If you guys could please go ahead and with your first question for Mr. Zimmerman.
What were your initial thoughts or emotions after being drafted?
Could you hear that all right, Mr. Zimmerman?
I couldn't hear that at all. Could you repeat it for me?
Yeah, it was. What were your initial thoughts or feelings when you first got drafted? What kind of first ran through your mind?
Well, I wasn't really surprised because I knew I was going to do that. It's not that I was cocky or anything, but being an analytical person, I saw that, my skill set was, in the NFL, they take you to the combine and you see how you compare to other players. So I knew I was going to get drafted. So being drafted wasn't that big of a deal to me because I expected it, but it's something I had planned for my whole life. It was a goal I set, once I got to college, we kind of upped the goals here that, that was my main goal to get to the NFL. So it wasn't really a surprise. So it was more of a, let's get on with business type thing now because I'm in the next step of this phase. But, it's something you're kind of looking ahead. And that's something that when I was at Minnesota, I had a fear of flying. So every time we took a road trip, it was brutal. So one off season, I decided to conquer that fear of flying, and I became a private pilot. And I learned to fly a plane, and I learned what all the noises were. But the biggest thing I learned by becoming a private pilot was you've got to plan ahead, because when you're flying a plane at 150 miles an hour, you're not concerned with right now. You're concerned with 10 minutes from now, because you need to be at a certain altitude, a certain speed, and a certain attitude. So that was the biggest thing that I learned by becoming a pilot was you got to broaden your horizons. You got to look out further. So that's just something that I learned, and hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. All right. And then for our last school in this first rotation, we're going to go then out to Fabius Pompey. And Betsy, I've unmuted your microphone for you. So if we have a question out there for Mr. Zimmerman.
I guess the question is, has he ever been hurt?
Ooh. I think every football player has been hurt more than they want to admit. I mean, and I had a college coach who was famous for saying, you got to know the difference between injury and pain. So there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. So it was drilled in your head, but there becomes a pride thing, when you play football, is everybody gets injured, and it's how you fight through it. I've talked about that. But one of the other characteristics of character is the characteristic of fear. And when you get hurt, to me, fear was entered into the equation then, because I wasn't afraid for myself or anything like that, but I was afraid I was going to let my teammates down. So for me, when I got hurt, I was fearful that I was going to let my teammates down. So I've had lots of surgeries and lots of minor pains, but everybody in life, including football, will be hurt somehow. But like I said earlier, you got to fight through it, and you can't give into it. So it's just a gritty thing. So.
Okay. All right, we're gonna go back out then to the live audience there in Bend, Oregon. If our two students there have another question for Mr. Zimmerman.
We would like to know, what was your mental pregame routine? How did you know that you were ready to play?
Well, if you wait till pregame to think about those things, it's too late. The key to pregame is working through the week. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's every day. If you come down to the last game and you're worried about something, it's too late, So you got to be prepared. You got to, one of the things I learned from my dad was hard work. And so when you work during the week, you take care of every conceivable thing you can foresee. And then when it comes time for the game, you just don't have to worry about things like that because you've already gone through all those things in your mind. But before the game, I just go through a mental, visualization of plays. And one of the other characteristics I had was everybody knows their own weaknesses. So I knew what my weaknesses were, and I knew what my strengths were. So I was kind of concerned. I didn't want to get caught with my weaknesses. So I know how to protect my own weaknesses. But coming down to the game, you just gotta prepare in advance. Like I talked about being a pilot, you've got to get ready during the week and be ready for the game when it comes. And you can't be sitting there before the game getting ready. So basically, you're just trying to relax before the game, and you're visualizing things and just trying to go out and play loose.
Very good. All right, we're gonna go back out to Kettering, Ohio, and our friends out there. If we have a second question for Mr. Zimmerman, I've unmuted your microphones already, so we should be good to go.
Our question for you was, what do you believe is your biggest accomplishment during your NFL career, or maybe just your biggest accomplishment that you've had outside of your career?
Well, I think the biggest accomplishment outside of my career was marrying my wife. I think I found somebody who had a lot of the similar values that I have about integrity and hard work. And, so I think, outside of football, I think my biggest accomplishment was marrying my wife. I think as far as football wise, I think it was being a good teammate. I don't think that all the accolades I made were because of me. I think there's a lot of people involved in getting me this yellow coat. There's 5 guys on the line, there's quarterbacks. So I don't believe for a minute that myself got me to this place. So I think being a good teammate for all those years is probably my biggest accomplishment, and being a hard worker. So I'd have to say, hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. And you see me writing stuff down here, guys. I hope you guys as well are taking notes on some of this stuff, because I'm writing stuff down here, and I think that's just a great answer, Mr. Zimmerman, as to when we talk about character, it's not always about you, but sometimes everyone else but you. So I love that answer about being a great teammate as your biggest accomplishment. So thank you. We're going to go then out to Youngblood Intermediate down there in Houston, Texas. If you guys could please unmute your microphones and ask a question of Mr. Zimmerman. I see a young lady coming down.
I had read that you stopped talking to the media. Can you tell us more about that?
And could you hear that, Gary?
Yeah, the media, not talking to the media?
Yep.
Okay, well, it's a long story, but anyways, what happened was I was playing with Minnesota, and a reporter came up to me after a game that we lost, and he asked me for my comments on it, and I said, well, today the offense didn't play well enough to win. I said the defense didn't play well enough to win, and special teams did not play well enough to win. The next day, I got up in the morning, and on the front page of the sports, it says, Zimmerman says defense did not play well enough to win. Didn't include the rest, it just said that. So, of course, the reporter steered kind of took advantage of the situation. So, of course, I was in trouble with my teammates because they thought that I said that. And of course, I forced them to do a retraction. But from that day on, I decided that the media is not my friend, as they just demonstrated. They have their pointed view. They're going to write what they want no matter what you say. So from that point on, I just decided they need me more than I need them. So I just stopped talking to them. And then it kind of caught on, we went to Denver, and it kind of caught some similar type things happen, but not as extreme. And so the whole offensive line decided that we'd adopt that rule. And we had a kangaroo court where, some guys, of course, love talking to the media. And, if they got caught talking, there'd be fines and that kind of stuff. But come Super Bowl in 1998, they instituted a rule because of the offensive line at Denver where if you don't talk to the media, you are fined. So I guess I did one good thing in the NFL is I got a rule named after us.
Very good. Very good. So we're going to go then out to Waldorf, Maryland, our friends there at Thomas Stone High School.
That you took to get to the NFL?
No, I'm sorry there. We came in kind of in the middle of the question. If you could please re-ask that.
What were the steps that you took to get to the NFL?
One more time. I don't know if you heard that, Gary, but I'm having trouble hearing it as well.
What were the steps that you took to get to the NFL?
What were the steps that you took to get to the NFL? What were the steps along the way?
Well, like I said earlier, when I was 9 years old, I knew I wanted to play football. So I played youth football from the age 9 up. And I think a common value I see that everybody in the Hall of Fame has is they love the game. And it just makes sense because it's hard to be good at something if you don't love doing it, because it's just hard to do something if you don't love it. But, I talked earlier about patience, and it just took time because you don't get good overnight. It takes time. So you got to lift weights, you got to run. It's a lot of hard work. And I've had questions at football camps where a young man asked me, how do you get better? And I gave him the whole thing about it. You got to lift weights and run and stuff. And he said, no, I want to know the easy way. And the answer is there is no easy way. And true in life, if you want to be a doctor, there's no easy way to be a doctor. You got to pay the price. So if you have a goal, you've got to be able to be determined and prioritize your life. When I was in high school, I lived down in LA, and all my friends would go to the beach all summer. I didn't go to the beach because I was doing summer school for football. And also at the age of 16, I had a job where I worked 24 to 30 hours every week. So I was a full-time employee as well as playing football. And I tell kids nowadays that if you want to be better at something, get a job, because then whatever else you're doing will be more precious to you. Because I always thought that it was a privilege to play football. You have to be a special person to play football because you have to pay the price. You have to show up when it's hot, and you got to lift weights, and then you got to run, and you lose a lot of free time. So there are sacrifices. There are anything in life you have to sacrifice and be able to willing to pay the price. So what I did was I just slowly progressed, and my love for the game slowly progressed, and it just became to where that's what I wanted to do, and I paid the price, looking back, it was probably easier for me because we didn't have cell phones. They weren't invented yet. We didn't have computers. We didn't have things like that, so we didn't have to worry about things like that. So in college, we had nothing to do, so I'd go lift weights at midnight. We had a group of guys that go lift weights at midnight because we had nothing else to do. So to me, football was what you guys do with Twitter and those kind of things nowadays is I just, work towards my goal. But like I said, I believe it was easier back then because I had a lot less distractions.
Very good. All right. And then we're going to go out to our friends there in Fabius, New York at Fabius Pompey Elementary. If we have a question out there.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm standing in front of 5 fourth graders. We were wondering what advice you could give fourth grade boy who would want to play in the NFL someday. What's that one thing or a couple things you would really need to kind of get you to that place?
I think the advice I would give you is have no regrets a few years down the road. if you truly want to play football, put all the effort you can into it. I mean, like I said before, it's not an overnight process. You've got to be dedicated. You've got to work. You've got to make sacrifices in other parts of your life. And the biggest thing is have no regrets. If you try and you don't make it, you gave it your best. But if you don't try, then you'll always wonder, could I have done it? Or if I would have done this a little more? So I always tell people, have no regrets. So if you want something, make sure you prioritize and make sure that you give it every effort you can to gain that goal so that you have no regrets.
Perfect. All right, and we'll go back out to the live audience there at Mountain View. If our two students there could ask their next question.
Yeah, the next question. Sorry, the next question we got is, how did you deal with the negativity both inside and outside the locker room?
Well, to me, it comes down to respect, I think. If I didn't respect something, I didn't care about it, so if somebody outside of my little group said something, I really don't care. I really don't care what somebody says about me because I know in my mind that I have integrity. I have, the character I have is me. And if somebody disagrees, I really don't care unless you're in my group. If I have a peer that I respect and they have something to say to me, then I will pay more attention to it because I respect that person. But if it's somebody I don't know or, the newspaper, I really don't care. That's part of the problem, I think, is pressure is self-imposed. I don't believe there really is a pressure because it's self-imposed. So when somebody outside of my respected group says something to me, I really don't care. So hopefully you guys can, develop something like that where you gotta care when you have a peer member who you respect. You gotta respect that. But if it's somebody outside of your group, just don't even worry about it. Just move on and do what that is right.
In that same vein, we had a question submitted via our chat function here. We hear a lot about the role of negative peer pressure and whatnot in the schools. Maybe is there an example from your playing age of your life where you kind of had some positive peer pressure, surround yourself with someone who kind of helped guide you and make sure you were always kind of staying on the path you were working towards?
Well, I think everybody has somebody who's kind of a mentor, and I had, my friends are usually older people. I don't know why it is, but it just seems like, at Oregon, I had a host family who gave me some good guidance, a view from outside of football. So, I'd be depressed and that kind of stuff, and they'd always, talk about how, you can just do what you can do. You got to keep steady on the path, things like that. But from age 9, I knew what I wanted to do, so I kind of knew what I had to do. So I just worked hard. There was a lot of adversity in my life. I chose to go to Oregon because they told me I could play middle linebacker. First day I get there, my number is 75, and I was thinking, boy, this is a funny number for middle linebacker. And the next day, I'm offensive lineman. So I probably wouldn't have gone to Oregon if they'd been truthful with me, but I made the best of a bad situation. A lot of kids nowadays, they're not starting, they move, but that's not my character. I stuck with it, and I made the best of a situation that wasn't pleasant. And that's kind of why I talked about that Dalai Lama quote is, not getting what I wanted playing middle linebacker, because I never would have made the NFL as a middle linebacker. But by being moved to the line, it was dreadful for a while, but it got me a career. And then like I said, I was lucky in not getting what I wished for.
Perfect. And I think when you told that story during your enshrinement speech, I think you also, I have the transcript here. You followed up with the statement that the point I'm trying to make here is that nobody starts off wanting to play the offensive line. We all just kind of end up there. And I think that got some laughs here from the crowd in Canton when you said that. So that was always one of my favorite parts of the speech. It was just kind of a humorous moment there, but also a truthful one. So, all right, we're going to go then out to our friends in Kettering, Ohio. They're at Kettering Fairmont High School. If we have the next question for Mr. Zimmerman.
Hi, how did you feel when you were inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame?
Well, I mean, it's the greatest honor a football player can get. So, you know, obviously I was honored, but in all honesty, I also felt bad because it cost so much to go out to the Hall of Fame, and I had friends I knew that couldn't afford it. So, you know, I felt great going into the Hall of Fame, but I also felt bad in that, you know, I had friends who couldn't afford to come out and join me in that. So, uh, but, but, you know, as a football player, there's no greater honor than being in the Hall of Fame. And, you know, I go back every year because I get to talk with people that I watched when I was a kid, you know, Terry Bradshaw, Merlin Olsen, who's not with us anymore, but all these great players that I got to see, and then I get to sit down and talk with them. And it's kind of weird because it's almost like I'm talking to myself because we all have common, it's like we're all related. It's unbelievable how common core or common goals and thoughts and everything everyone has there. So, you know, it definitely was a great honor. It was, but I think the biggest honor now is going back every year and hearing stories from these guys of how it used to be in the old days and you know, things that other guys have been through. So I think it's a great honor. I'm a fan as much as I am a gold jacket.
Now, obviously, a lot less pressure coming back when you don't have to give a speech when you come back nowadays.
Yeah, well, I'm one of the few that, you know, made it in my time slot, so I want points for that. But
we do appreciate that. So we're gonna go then out to Youngblood Intermediate down there in Texas. If we have our next question for Mr. Zimmerman.
Hello. Can you just tell us about your favorite workout routine?
Oh, I don't know if you heard that, Mr. Zimmerman, but they were asking about your favorite workout routine.
Well, it kind of changes over time because when you're young, you love doing that stuff, and then by the end of your career, you know, you're dreading it. But I think the biggest thing was when I played, it wasn't year round like it is now. Now they stay in town and they all have, you know, they're in shape. But you know, back in the old days, you played the season, you went home, you came back in July, you got out of shape, and you played yourself into shape. But now they don't do that. But you know, when you come home, the hardest part is working out by yourself. So every day, you know, I'd get up at 6 o'clock and I'd go down to the gym till 11, and then I'd do my running. But it just became a mindset, and I didn't really enjoy doing it towards the end, but I knew I had to do it because, you know, you're fighting for time, because as you get older, you know, your body breaks down and you need it more than you do when you're young. But when you're young, you enjoy doing that kind of thing. But my favorite workout was lifting weights. I liked lifting weights, and I didn't like the running part as much. I liked doing sprints, things like that. I didn't like long distance, but you know, I really enjoyed going into the weight room because there's camaraderie there when you go to the weight room, because it's your teammates, you're lifting with your teammates, and so you know, it's your buddies, and you're having fun, you're cracking jokes, and you're working hard. So I think weights would be the thing I favor the most.
Perfect. All right, we're then going to go out to Maryland there, our friends there at is it Thomas Stone High School, if we have a question for Mr. Zimmerman.
What do you think sets you apart from other players in order to be successful?
Could you repeat that for me, Mike? Or
it was what do you think sets you apart from all the other players that helped you be that much more successful?
I really don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with luck. You know, because anybody who makes it this long and, you know, can still play, you're lucky, because I've seen guys with a lot more talent than I had who got hurt than ended their career. So I think, you know, in every player's background, there's got to be a lot of luck involved that you know, you make it through uninjured. But I'd have to say that's it. You know, I was lucky, and like I said before, I didn't get this coat by myself. And there's, you know, I had teammates in high school that, you know, helped me make it to the college level, then college teammates who helped me make it to the pros. Then I had two sets of teams that, you know, college, you know, linemen to help me make it. So there's a lot of people on this coat besides myself. So that's just the way I view it, you know, and it's just the way it is. It's a group effort.
Perfect. All right, back out there then to the live audience in Bend, Oregon, if we have another question for our Hall of Famer.
Yeah, we want to know, how do you overcome adversity when it seems like everything's against you? And do you have any specific examples from your life or career?
Well, like I said earlier, is that there's no quick fix. So what I did when adversity struck was I went back to basics. I went back to fundamentals, because as a lineman, you learn fundamentals, how to step, how to block, how to do that. So when adversity hit me, I went back to basics. That's what you have to do, is you have to start all over and go back to basics. But that's, adversity comes in many ways also. There's, things happen, but you just have to beat it back. But let me think of an example that would help. I think the biggest example I have is, when they moved me from middle linebacker to lineman, the adversity then was, I had to learn a new position. I had to play a position I really didn't want to play, but I made the best of it. And it was a long time coming. It just, I did step by step, and that would be the biggest one, I think. But, on the injury front, there were several times when I got hurt. I didn't think I could play the following week. And, you just, Thursday comes along and it's like, oh no, I'm not going to make it. Then Friday comes along, oh, I'm not going to make it. Then Saturday, oh boy, it feels a lot better. So adversity it just takes time. It's slow. You can't rush things, because it just takes time.
All right, we're gonna go back out then, right down the road here in Kettering, Ohio, to Kettering Fairmont High School. If we have a question for Mr. Zimmerman.
Like right in front of me.
Ready. So what advice would you give a high school recruit in today's world?
Can you repeat that, Mike?
Yeah, it was what advice would you give a high school recruit? Maybe someone who's getting looked at by a D1 program. What advice would you give to them in today's world?
Well, I think first of all that has a subject matter you want to study, because football for most people doesn't last long. So you've always got to have a plan B. And, I'm very proud that I got my degree. For me, the degree was plan C. But as a recruit, make sure you pick a school that has a subject matter you want to study, because if you go to a school that doesn't teach what you want, you're wasting your time. Because I know a lot of people think they're going to make the NFL, and a lot of people have the skills to do it, but an injury comes along and it's over. So in a flash of a light, your career can be over. So as a recruit, make sure you have a plan B. If you go to a school, make sure you get an education, because no matter how good you are, sooner or later, you're going to be out of football. I've been out of football. I've got a degree. So you need something to be able to do once you're out of football. So as a college recruit, just make sure you pick a school that you're comfortable with, academically and athletically.
Perfect. All right, and then back out to Youngblood Intermediate. If we have another question for Gary.
The weaknesses that you had in your career, how are you able to solve them?
If you couldn't hear that, Mr. Zimmerman, it was the weaknesses you had in your career. How were you able to maybe turn those into strengths, or at least lessen the weakness that they were?
Well, the biggest one I want to talk about is towards the end of my career, I had shoulder issues, and I had 4 surgeries on my shoulders. So I was very weak. So the last 2 years of my career, I'd go to work at 4:30 in the morning, and I'd go in there and I'd get treatment. Then I'd lift weights, because I didn't want people to see how weak I was, because there's a perception. It's like the elephant at the carnival. They put a little chain on him and they hook him to the pole, but he could tear that pole out if he wanted to, but his perception is that he can't. So the perception was that I was a regular football player. I didn't want anybody to understand that I was so weak that if somebody tried to overpower me, it would have been no problem. I could only bench press 200 pounds my last 2 years. So I compensated that by, 1, not exposing my weakness, and 2, I knew I had the weakness, so I tried not to get in a situation where it became a strength thing. So I tried to invite people to speed rush and stuff like that. So I tried to invite somebody else to be lazy and take the easy way out. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But human nature is if you give somebody a choice between the hard way and the easy way, a lot of times if they're not strong, they will take the easy way. So that's what I try to do, is give my opponents the easy way out. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
All right, great. And then we have about a little less than 10 minutes left in the program, so we're going to go back out to our live audience there in Bend, Oregon, if we have another question for Mr. Zimmerman.
Yeah, one question we got is, how in the world were you able to play 169 straight games?
Well, strangely enough, that is not very many. Jim Marshall, I think, from the Vikings played 200 and something. So, and they only played they played a shorter schedule then too. So he played many more years. But I think, like I said earlier, there's a lot of luck involved. I had good athletic trainers who when you do get injury, they doctored you up as best they could. But the biggest thing was determination. Like I said, it just became, with the Vikings, it was, you play unless you can't walk, and that was just kind of mindset back then. So, I mean, it wasn't easy. It was a lot of adversity, and it just, you work through it. It doesn't get easier the next time. 1 week you get hurt, the next week you get hurt. It doesn't get any easier. It's a constant struggle, and by the end of the season, you're mentally and physically wore out. So you just got to plug away. It's a slow process. Like I said, it's just day by day, and things get better.
All right, then we'll go back out to Kettering, Ohio, maybe for our last question from that location out there.
Is there something that sticks with you, one moment from college or the NFL that touches you?
Something. Could you repeat that one, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a question: was there something from your college or pro days that always kind of sticks with you? Maybe a favorite memory or a favorite. I don't know if you want to relate to carry a favorite lesson that always kind of is a fond memory for you.
Well, I think for me on that one, my favorite memory is the last game I ever played in, which was Super Bowl 32. And the reason it's so memorable to me is, I played 12 years in the NFL and I got one shot at it. So, when you watch the game, you think it's easy to make it to the Super Bowl. It's not. There's a lot of guys who never even get the chance. So my favorite memory was the fact that the year we went to the Super Bowl, we were a wild card. We had to win five games to get to the Super Bowl. We were the first team in a long time that, made it as a wild card. We get to Super Bowl 32 and we're playing Green Bay Packers, and we had nobody on the offensive line over 300 pounds. The Green Bay Packers defensive line was, Reggie White, and they had a guy named the Grave Digger. So they were all over 300 pounds, and all the papers and the pundits were talking about how we had no chance. We couldn't compete with the big guys because we had nobody over 300 pounds and all that kind of stuff. And we came out, and it was probably one of the best Super Bowls. I mean, it was back and forth. We scored, they scored. It was like whoever had the ball last was going to win the game, it seemed like. And that's a big memory for me because we overcame the doubt that, we were a smaller team. Nobody gave us a chance from the start. We won the game, and that was when I retired, because in all my career, the only thing missing was a Super Bowl ring. And so once I got the Super Bowl ring, I decided it was time to call it quits while I could still walk. So that is the game that is the memory that, why the favorite memory, I guess.
Perfect. And then for our last question of the program, we'll go out to Youngblood down there in Texas. Close it out with one final question.
When you were little, did you ever want to be like anything else? Want to do anything else besides play football?
The question was, Mr. Zimmerman, if you couldn't hear that, was I know you said you wanted to play, you knew you would do since you were 9, but if there was ever a time when you were a kid, if you thought about doing something else?
No, that's the thing is, from the age of 9, that's all I wanted to do. And my dad was an engineer, and he used to have fits over this because he'd always say, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I'd say, "I'm going to play in the NFL." And he'd say, "Why don't you become a fireman?" I said, "No, I want to play in the NFL." So he'd get make me get a pencil and paper out, and he said, "Well, how many teams are there?" And I said, "No, 28." And he said, "Well, how many players on a team?" I said, 50. And he says, "Multiply that out." And it's like, well, that's not a very big number, is it? No, and it's no. And so he said, your odds of making it are very small. And I said, no, it's pretty simple, you know. So, you know, I just paid the price, and reality is I got lucky because most people in life don't get to do what they, you know, they dream of doing when they're young. So I do understand that I'm blessed in that way. But all through my life, my priorities in life were to get that goal. And I think that really paid off in that even at that young age, you know, I made sacrifices that other kids didn't. And looking back, you know, that's the difference is I made the sacrifices at a young age and carried them, used, you know, continued with those sacrifices all the way through college. And, you know, now I made the goal, and now the people that didn't make the sacrifices are sacrificing now because, you know, they didn't get what they wanted. But I just think, you know, the slow and steady, you know, the hare and the tortoise, you know, you just got to be slow and steady. And that's what I did is from the age of 9, you know, I had enough time to prepare and, you know, I lifted weights and, you know, worked hard, and you know, that was my goal in life. And that always was. So it never wavered. So I didn't really want to do anything else, but I talked earlier about how my degree was plan C. My plan B was I was going to join the service. You know, when I went to college, to be honest, I didn't go there to be a brainiac. I went there to try to make it in football, and that's what I did. I got my degree. I was a very average student, but I always said I'm going to give it a shot, and if I don't make it, I'll have no regrets. But if I didn't make it, I was going to join the service and go that route, and then have my degree for when I got out of there. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Very good. And like I said, that was our last question of the program. So with that, Mr. Zimmerman, if you have any closing remarks, maybe some you want to, you know, reinforce that we talked about today, or maybe some that we didn't get to that you were hoping to talk about, you have another minute or two to share that with the audience as we close.
Well, I'd like to say that to me, the most important character trait to me is integrity. I think to me, integrity is you know, a very easy definition is doing the right thing when nobody sees you is what it is, because integrity is, it takes a long time to build up, and if you make a mistake, it's gone. So integrity is constant. It's on all parts of your life. You've got to work hard with your integrity, because everybody in here knows people who look you in the face and lie. Everybody here knows people who have impeccable integrity. You have to know who to respect. You know, do you respect your coaches? Who do you look up to? You got to have courage to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to learn to understand that just because you're not comfortable, it's okay. Everybody has fear. I had fear every time I went on that field. It wasn't that I was going to lose or anything like that. It was I was going to let my teammates down. So get a goal, you know, shoot for the moon. If you truly want that. The other secret in life, I think, is if you don't love something, you're not going to be good at it, because you're not going to pay the price. So everybody in this room has something they would like to do, and you should give it a try, because if you like to do something, you usually be pretty good at it if you pay the price and, you know, put the time in and work at it. So, you know, hopefully some of these skills you'll implement, and I thank you guys for all coming today, and I enjoyed it. And for the people here, if you have any questions after we sign off here, I'll be glad to stay around and answer any more if you would like. So
Perfect.
Thanks a lot.
Well, I know we all enjoyed it here as well, Mr. Zimmerman. So if you go unmute, we're going to run out of applause. We'll remute our mics, please. Perfect. And then, Mr. Zimmerman, from us here at the Hall of Fame, on behalf of all of our executive staff, Mr. Baker, our executive director and president, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to do this program. It's one that we think is very valuable to our youth. So we appreciate your time, and you know, you're always welcome here in your second, third home here in Canton, Ohio. So this will officially end our program, and we thank all those participating. See you next time.
Thank you.